Are
you doing it?
I don't have an hand. Hey.
Brian, I'm staring into your soul. Just so you know.
About what?
I'm staring into your soul.
Oh, I feel it. So that's what that is.
It's kind of tingly, isn't it?
So we're live.
We are live. All right, so we are live. Welcome to the Digital Speakeasy, everyone. We are here today to raise some money for World Central Kitchen for the frontline workers, as well as talk about live music in Chicago with some great guests from the Chicago music scene. And we're going to talk about the effect and what's going on with COVID and everything. So first off, just want to introduce everybody on the stream today. So I'm going to go in order of my screen because it's easier to just go that way and I won't get lost. So first we've got James VonOsdol, a longtime Chicago radio guy and hosts a great podcast. We're going to talk about all sorts of fun stuff there and has been the voice of local Chicago music for quite a while now.
And thanks for opening with Naked Ray Gun.
Oh, well, I have to go with my early Chicago live music roots, and that is definitely some early Ray Gun shows back at Metro in the mid '80s, and
wow,
love it.
Tom, you probably remember a few of those.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You know, sitting on the floor watching cartoons with a bunch of skinheads as the show was getting started was always an interesting time. Then we've got Allison and Brian here from the Oh Yeahs and Hood Smoke, respectively. Trey Elderand from Quiet Pterodactyl and working on the Situation Chicago project. Tom Schmall from Red Light Management currently. I don't know if you want to, what are your other endeavors that you want, if you need to mention any of them or?
Red Light Management is good enough for now. Yeah, it's good.
Red Light Management works. And then we've got some of my other wonderful digital speakeasy coworkers, TJ, Evan and Jeremy on too. So thank you for tuning in. So who we are is we are a group of employees from the company Edrington, represent a bunch of different whiskey brands, and we wanted to create, it's all started during the lockdown, a bar type atmosphere. People sitting in a bar having a conversation is where this all started. It's kind of evolved from there. And Edrington is a company that we are all about giving more. So we partnered up with the World Central Kitchen, which is a great charity. They take their donations, 100% of the donations go to buying meals for frontline workers like hospital workers, seniors, people who need food assistance right now. And they buy them directly from local restaurants. So 100% of that money is going to local restaurants. And our Edrington, our company, has graciously decided to double match all of those donations up to $50,000. So if we can raise $50,000 by the end of December, that will be $150,000 going to World Central Kitchen. We're up a little bit. We're close to 2,500 at this point, and we're only a few weeks in, so we're hoping to get there. And I'm sure one of my coworkers will drop the link into the chat so that way everybody can see it, and it's definitely on our Facebook page. You can link to it there. So if you can, excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. If you can spare a moment to go ahead and donate, that would be fantastic. We also want to remind everybody, if you can, subscribe to our YouTube page, like our Facebook page, for some other great content. So let's get started. So the first person I want to talk to today is going to be Mr. Tom Schmall. I've known Tom. And I chose that song for Tom for two reasons. One, he loves Prince. Two, he loves the Bears. And I know that watching Prince play that song at the Super Bowl is probably a pretty cool experience, live music experience for you.
The greatest halftime show ever, for sure.
Were you there?
No, I wasn't there. I was supposed to be there, and it fell through last minute. And in hindsight, I actually had an invite to actually be part of the crew, the halftime crew as well, and it just didn't come together at the last minute. So of course, my favorite team, my favorite artist, they lost, but still, to be there would have been amazing. So.
It's still one of those performances you can watch on YouTube and choke up just watching
Oh
it.
my God, yeah. And there was like a documentary on ESPN or whatever it was, and Bruce Rogers, who designs all the tours for the halftime shows, they walk through the whole thing and explain how it happened and the rain and everything, and it's a great watch if you have a chance.
Very cool. So you have been working in the music industry for as long as I can remember. Various different positions, various different things. You now work for a company that manages it's probably, I think it's over 100, if not hundreds of artists.
It's close to 4, yeah.
Yeah, throughout the country. So
all over the world, yeah.
So what's going on? How obviously tours are canceled. Certain states are open, certain are closed. Even the ones that are open, some are having events, some aren't. How is that working out right now?
Yeah, it's not. And that's the issue, right? About the second or third week of March, everything just kind of came to a screeching halt, as everyone knows. And I was the night before we got pulled up the road. I was supposed to be in Detroit for a Caitlin Smith show, and she was on the road with Little Big Town, and I got the call like 10 o'clock at night. The whole tour was canceled, and everyone was heading back home, and that was the end of it. So my last live show up until recently was the Robinson Brothers and the Black Crows, who we managed, did a one-off, like a little show at Lincoln Hall to promote the tour that was upcoming, which obviously never happened. And that was at the end of February, and that was it. So, everyone is at home doing a lot of, live IG sessions and Facebook sessions and things for YouTube and various organizations. It's just everyone's trying to stay as active as possible, until this thing comes to a point to where they can really start talking about, touring again. So, which could be a while still, unfortunately.
So I've seen that, speaking of Lincoln Hall, this week they made an announcement that they're going to start doing concerts that are broadcast live from Lincoln Hall and sell tickets to those concerts for people to see bands perform live. What do you, I don't know if you have anybody coming up on that, or if you have any thoughts, or?
It's I think it's a necessary step, and in terms of how much revenue it generates, or in terms of trying to get back to the ways of old. At this point, it really doesn't matter. It's a matter about having a starting point. So you have to start somewhere, right? And you're probably seeing a lot about these drive-in concerts that are happening now. Live Nation's doing a lot of these drive-in concerts that literally just happened. I think started this past couple weekends with like Brad Paisley, and they ran a few, and it sounds like they were pretty successful. And again, it's just a place to start. But the small venues like Lincoln Hall and Metro, they're in a different situation because, this is what they're there for. So if there's no other ways to make money. They generate revenue by live shows, and a lot of these places, most of them don't have restaurants attached or whatever the case may be. So if there's no shows, there's no money coming in. So it's pretty dire, because if they didn't receive the funding that they should have received initially. So they're trying to get funding now in order to stay afloat, or else by the end of the year, a lot of these venues could be closed forever for good. So it's an issue, obviously.
I know that in over the last 10, 15 years, you've worked for record labels, and now back, and you started in artist management, went to work at labels, and now we're back in artist management.
Right.
It seems like, from the people I know who play music, most of the income now doesn't come from selling records or selling music. It comes from touring. No. It's from playing live.
Yeah, it's it's probably in the neighborhood of like 70, 75, 80%. It depends on the artist. Some artists, stream these outrageous numbers because they have hits that are on TikTok or on, various other platforms. And they stream numbers to where there's enough revenue, and but now you're talking about touring, you're talking about sync licenses, whether it's having songs in movies, TV shows, commercials, sponsorship deals. there's management in general has management companies have really gotten creative in over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years in generating non-traditional revenue sources for these artists. So that includes, merchandise and all these other things that always were there, but finding new ways of selling merchandise and new merchandise and just coming up with original ways to create income and long-term and hopefully long-term income as well. So yeah, because people aren't buying music right now. They're buying vinyl, but I mean it's not like it'll never go back to where it was. That's for sure.
I remember some of the earliest vinyl listening to at your house, listening to old Kiss records,
Oh yeah,
AC/DC and stuff, way back.
yeah, back, and I still have a lot of that stuff, and it's fun to throw on the turntable every once in a while, and it's great because my son's 15 and he's now like he digs through all the old vinyl and old CDs, and he's real tech savvy, but he likes going back and reading liner notes and talking about producers and what engineers do. I mean, and he's finding it kind of on his own just by being around. So it's really great to kind of see him perk up and take interest in this stuff.
Very cool. All right.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, so there's people who I follow now and I'm looking at their tour dates and, some people like there's a festival in Chicago that's like in, late July, some of the stuff they're talking about August tour dates. I mean, is that feasible, or, I mean, is that going to be far too soon for people to be like, a small venue, one of those places where it's just a stage, 2 bars, just sort of shoulder to shoulder. What do you think it'll be this year that you'll see any of that still, or?
If you would have asked me this question, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I would have said that I personally felt like there was hope that we were going to come to some kind of situation where we can have live music again in person, in 2020. But now seeing what's happening across, whether it's Florida, Arizona, all these hotspots that are resurging with these huge numbers, it's starting to look less and less like it's a possibility. I mean, you just, everyone thinks that because it's small venues, that you can, it's a small amount of people, you can have shows, but in reality, I mean, how do you social distance in the metro? I mean, or these halls, any venue that's GA, I mean, it's just, you got to get the people in the venue, out of the venue, the washrooms, the bars. It's just, and then the issue is that the liability is just too great. I mean, there's still a lot that's not known. So it's risk against reward, and right now risk is winning, unfortunately.
Do you think places like Red Rocks or outdoor venues that might have seating to where they can be like, hey, these are your seats, we leave XYZ open, and then there's that next set of seats. Once they sell out, they sell out. So it also kind of creates a demand so that, you could stagger people out, but be like, hey, it only sells a third of the seats that you normally would. So, I mean, is that kind of the way to go, or?
Yeah, I mean, and everyone's trying to sort this out and figure out a way to get back to some kind of normal. But the issue is, even if you have a venue that's 25%, capacity, let's say, and you have the seats spread out and whatever it is, you still have to usher those people in the venue and out of the venue. There's issues, with the restrooms, the concessions, the merch.
And get the artist in and out of your state safely.
Yeah, I mean, and it was funny because
To get there.
I was on a call a while back, and it had kind of like a member from like each, various people from someone from like a big production company and a big touring company and a small owner of a venue and a tour manager, and they kind of put this little group together to get on this call to kind of say, okay, where do we start? And the guy at the big venue is like, well, let's start with a small venue. Small venue is like, okay, well, I can put tape on the floor, space people apart, we can let people in groups, and maybe that'll work. And everyone's like, okay. And then they're kind of going down the road. And also the tour manager's like, well, hang on a second. Before you do all that, I have to get my band to your venue. So now I've got to get, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many people it is, depending on the size of the tour, on a bus or in a van. And we have to get there. And that includes, rest stops, hotel, day rooms at hotels. I mean, all these different things. And, on a tour, sometimes it's like, you're on the road, you may not shower until the next 2 or 3 days, depending on, the band and the venue. So, so that puts them at risk. So it's, they're right now it's trying everything they can to make all this stuff happen, but they keep hitting a roadblock. at every turn, and hopefully they can start to sort it out and things start to calm down a little bit. But
Yeah.
who knows?
So it kind of, so some of this kind of brings up to like what I was going to talk about with Trey here. So Trey has been putting together a great package or a great particular record here, which is why one of the reasons we have Angela and Brian here, and talking about Situation Chicago and what's going on with that.
There's a man standing around the things that I own.
Trey? So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Situation Chicago to help some of these venues?
Yeah, sure. Like Tom said, at the beginning of the pandemic, everything shut down very rapidly. All my events for this year were canceled immediately. But at the beginning, there was hope that that might turn around, but quickly it really looked like, even before the recent new wave in Florida and California and whatnot, it's just not looking good for these venues to be able to open. So I had recently started a nonprofit called Quiet Pterodactyl, and it was mostly going to do events in 2020. With those canceled, my thought was, okay, shift gears. What is the most impactful thing we can do that would help the most people in the music community in Chicago? And the idea was this record compilation. It's all Chicago artists, and a lot of Chicago venues are on board to help promote it. And we got local Chicago sponsors to pay for all the upfront costs, and 100% of the record sales are going to go back to the venues. And that could be, they could give it to their staff. They could use it just to keep the lights on. Right now, I think everyone's in such dire straits with no real opening end in sight that it's really just whatever we can do to help keep these venues open, so we can go see live music again soon, whether that's 2 months from now or 2 years from now or whenever it is. Without venues, there is no live music.
Yeah, and I guess that really speaks to it. It's, Evan, you're down in Nashville. We just had all of your bars just close. I don't know how many of them were doing live music in them when they reopened, but my guess is now we know none of them are.
That's the problem, is there was a lot of the music piece was the last piece of it, because then, they thought, well, we can have bars open and people just hang out and still be kind of social distance. But, moth to a flame, once you put a band up on stage, people just gravitate that way. And so that was one of the last pieces to go in. And so also
that never happens at jazz shows. I'm just kidding.
I had a little
stage as possible.
I had a jazz group on a digital speakeasy and from one of our little jazz bars, because I was like, it's that unsung part of Nashville that there's actually cool other music besides country. Sweet Jesus.
Yeah.
But but that's what's tough is, so many of our, our Third and Lindsley's are, just these cool little clubs that actually play really great eclectic music. Those are the ones that really get hurt, because tourists will still come in and see watered down country kind of wherever. But good venues that have good artists that come in, those are the ones I'm really worried about, because there aren't a huge amount, because Nashville isn't known for it. And so, I really worry about those places.
Yeah.
So Brian, you're from Wisconsin originally.
I am, yes.
And
Yeah.
so this weekend we have the, what are they calling it? The Herd Immunity Festival going on up there?
What?
Oh, I didn't even know about that. I haven't lived there in a long time.
I think it was either canceled or they were forced to change the name.
They definitely changed the name.
I think I read that they did change the name, but they are having a music festival in, I think it's Rankle, Wisconsin this weekend. And they originally were going to call it the Herd Immunity Fest.
Where? What town? What city?
Rankle, I want to say.
It's
I
way
never even
northwest.
heard of
Yeah.
that town.
Brian, it's wherever you're from.
Yes, that's right. My father is the mayor. Yeah, of course.
Plus, just, like everybody in Illinois is from Chicago. I'm sure, everybody in Wisconsin
Right.
is from,
Yeah, we're all from
Rankle.
Milwaukee. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know about that. No. How did
So-
it go? Did it happen or?
Like, are you mad that you weren't booked for it?
Yeah.
Another lost
one-
gig.
So,
Yeah, the one gig available. Yeah.
so would you have played?
Of course. I'm desperate. Yeah, I would have done anything. No.
So what's going on with you guys? You are obviously, both of you are affected by this. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about it.
Well, I've been in the studio once we got comfortable enough with that, we continued to work on another studio album we've been working on. So trying to take advantage of the situation, I guess, you know, trying to do something. But it's bleak, you know, it sucks. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine, and, you know, one of the things that sucks most is just like how much we took for granted just playing music with each other all the time, because, you know, we can't be in the same room, you know, depending on where you are, who, you know, the people you're dealing with, and everyone's who feels safe with what. It's like next thing you know, you can't be singing in the same room. And then next thing you know, you haven't stood next to a drummer in however many months. And it's like, wait, I'm almost always next to a drummer, you know, like never really thought about it until it's not there anymore. And it's like just kind of those basic feelings really that I know we've all been going through of just not playing music as much. We've actually been fortunate to be a part of these backyard barbecue gigs, these like private gigs that our friend and peer has gotten together because of the situation. So at people's houses, like on the northwest side of Chicago here, they'll hire a private group, you know, and we'll do like a private party. So that's been kind of cool, but that's about it.
Yeah, for us, I think, you know, when everything happened, like Leslie, she had to move home, you know, and Sarah lives in Evanston, so now we're apart. And since the pandemic started, we tried to put together videos, you know, just separately, like, you know, our like a 3-way video or whatever, and it forced us to kind of sing our parts separately, which is super weird for us. We're very used to just like kind of coming together and putting it together on the spot, the three of us. But it's been challenging, and especially since singing is like super dangerous. The thing that we do is like that's gonna kill everybody. So that's been pretty upsetting.
So from that standpoint, you know, Allison, you play in 3-piece acoustic group where you're all singing, but it's acoustic. Versus Brian, you're playing in a full band with electric instruments and drums and everything else. Are there similar challenges, differences between the two different, like does one style make it harder and another style make it easier, or it sucks all the way around? When
doing the virtual thing?
Yeah, when doing the virtual thing.
Well, I think it's probably the same. I mean, I don't know, it's all just recording separate tracks and putting them together.
It's a lot of pressure on our drummer because we make him go first. So he has to know the entire, he's just playing and just, you know, in his head singing the entire song with nothing. So luckily we have Mike, who's amazing and really good at that, but otherwise that we'd be kind of screwed. But good drummers, love them.
Good drummers are hard to find.
Yeah, love them.
Yeah, I think just like playing, when you're used to playing in a band, you have your part and see how it fits, and just like trying to do it alone, you kind of forget. Like I felt like, you know, singing some of these songs, even songs I wrote, just like I don't remember how this goes without hearing the other parts at the same time. So that's been interesting, but it's been a fun challenge.
Well, we've got
using different part of our brains.
So we've got our first song up here. It's from your Parlor Lockdown series, Seneca Lake from Hood Smoke. Now, before we start playing it, I want to ask, so did you guys record this in 4 separate parts and then put the videos together, or did you do it all at once?
So we got Mike, the drummer, to go first, right? And then he sent Matt, the guitar player, his audio, right? So then Matt listens to the drums and performs his guitar, right? And then Matt sends that to me. So now I have the drums, Matt's guitar, and then I play on top of that. And then we sent it to Jim last. So that's how we've been doing it.
No, but how did you do the video for it?
Oh, how do we sync the videos?
Yeah. Then we use Premiere Pro. You just have to sync everything using the one audio track, and just it's pretty tedious. I mean, we kind of got good at it. In the beginning was very frustrating.
We developed a new skill.
Yeah.
Because of all of this. Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on in our industry as well. We're all, I think,
necessity is the mother. Yes.
Yeah. I had no idea how to do any of this stuff until, how do you run a YouTube page? I don't know. Like, I guess we'll figure it out.
Right.
Cool. Well, let me see if I can figure
Can I
it
add really
out.
quick that Seneca Lake by Hood Smoke is the closing song on the Situation Chicago vinyl record.
Yes.
Trey, can you throw a link up to Situation Chicago in the chat while I get this song ready to roll here?
JVO, you're so handsome. As always.
Thanks, Tom. I feel like I never get noticed for the handsomeness.
You wouldn't be you without it, baby.
Should we be getting the audio?
I was like, tell me I'm not crazy and it's not making any noise.
Yeah, no, it's silent, Sri.
Oh man, you got to be like the drummer and imagine it all.
I'm just watching for the synchronization of it all. I don't want the sound. I just want to see it visually. Everybody sync up. It'll be amazing.
Sri did say he was learning some new skills right now. So
Yeah,
as
you
we
learn as
speak,
you go.
yeah.
It's new
stopped
skills,
learning-
new skills.
I stopped learning about 15 years ago. So
All right. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
I
there
hear
we go.
drummers.
The dew stays long after morning wakes. A kiss at dawn on Seneca Lake. Rose and rose of wine on the terrain. Will odor full of memories and pain. Country blind, being chased by the moon. Or a cat smile lets you know we'll be there soon. So hike that hill until we meet again. Share a drink with one of my old friends. So hike that hill until we meet again. Share a drink with one of my old friends. Share a drink with one of my old friends.
Yay!
It's great.
All right, that was great.
So one of the hardest parts about these things, and every artist we have on here, I should have mentioned this ahead of time, is you can't ever you might see the hands moving, but you can never hear any clapping.
Well, that was the first one we've had on that actually sounded good.
Hey,
Yay!
Bootsy.
Progress.
There he goes.
Also, Jim, your guitarist has grown in quite the beard there. I don't think I've ever seen him that much
Yeah,
facial hair.
He buzzed his head too since then, which is pretty
Really?
crazy. Yeah.
Well, maybe if I got to see my friends every now and then, I'd know that.
He's going with the Trey look there. Very cool. Well,
Very popular.
next I want to bring up to the front here, Mr. James VonOsdol.
Here I am.
The
After we're done, Sri, we need to talk about how to get the video from YouTube onto the Zoom. This is something I've been wrestling with for a while. So you are an innovator and leading by example. So we need to talk about that.
I wouldn't say quite innovator. I'm sitting here working 2 different computers and all this other stuff, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, it worked.
So James has been somebody who's been, for those of you who live here in Chicago or have lived in Chicago, has been a staple of the Chicago radio scene for quite a long time. I won't say how long because I don't want to embarrass him, but for quite a long time.
You can say how long. I've got gray in my beard. It's no secret.
Shows
I've been
in his
doing this for a
beard.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to be saying how old I am too. So I don't
Fair.
necessarily want to go with that route.
Fair enough.
A solid 9 months.
Though Tom looks better than all of us, so I
Always.
just have to say,
Always.
you know, you definitely have aged better than anybody.
Filters. I'm kidding.
So, you know, I was talking to James a little bit before we started, and James runs is only part-time at the radio station now.
Well, no,
Is
I'm
a great-
full-time. Hang on.
Well, full-time. Well, I'm sorry, part-time at WKQX on the air. Part-time on the
Yes.
air.
Yes.
His on-air show is a local music show and has been for quite a while.
I've been doing local music shows on Chicago radio since 1995.
Yes. So James is the voice of Chicago local music in Chicago radio. But aside from that, James works at the radio station in another full-time capacity. He runs a great podcast called Cark and Carne. He does a number of other things, and we were talking about it. And I until I started looking at all the different jobs James has, I hadn't realized how close radio people are to bartenders and brand ambassadors.
Radio people do like their alcohol. I mean, that's no secret. Am I
He
right,
means
Tom?
that as a compliment. That's the thing.
I do.
He really does.
Well, and Jeremy, you're an ex-bartender, and Trey, you can attest to this. How many bartenders have, like, you have a bartending job, you've got your brand gig, you've got your other side gig, you're doing all these different things. You're bouncing back and forth between sometimes you're a full-time brand person and part-time bartender, and you flip it. You do it the other way around. And everybody kind of bounces back.
It feels like it's just a lot of creative energy.
Well, that's exactly what it is. That's having a radio job is great, but for creatives, you always want to find ways to expand. You know, I've written books, I've podcasts. Like I always find ways to occupy myself, and that's just being. I don't know if it's a radio thing or just being in a creative world where you just want to find other outlets because one dedicated job can never be enough.
So you've still been doing the local live music show on Sundays throughout this whole process. How has, in talking to your guests and to all the local musicians that you obviously have known for quite a while, have you been hearing some of the same things that we're hearing from Allison and Brian in terms of what's going on out there?
Yeah, I mean, they said it, Tom said it, Trey said it. It's dire. It's really tough. I mean, let's. There's no mistake here. We are in the middle of this horrible collective trauma, and I think it's not inappropriate or wrong to have the response of, "Oh my God, the world is ending. We're living in a dystopia," and lick your wounds for a while and think, "This is tough stuff. How am I going to get through this?" But I think to that end, and with a lot of the artists I'm talking to, innovation is so important. I mean, we saw it with the Hood Smoke video. How do you fight your way through this situation? Because you can't coast on the fact that normal is coming back. I don't know what that is anymore. I don't know if it is coming back. So how do you innovate your way around this or through it or bully your way through the pandemic? And I think with a lot of the artists I'm talking to, it's being creative, understanding that the old model is currently broken and we're waiting for the service guy to show up, but it's kind of like cable and you don't know when he'll be there. You just have to bully your way around. And the financial models aren't great. You know, we mentioned drive-in concerts. I hope that reaches a more independent level. I saw Local H do a drive-in concert downstate Illinois a couple weeks ago. It was brilliant. It was great. Social distancing was respected, but not everyone plays at a level of Local H. Not everyone can sell out a drive-in 2 nights in a row. So I'm hoping there is a DIY push, an independent push for more independent artists maybe to pull together and do things like that, so that it's not just the domain of Live Nation or the big guns, but that independent artists can find a way to work their way through it. And if it's not drive-in concerts, I don't know what the other alternatives can be, but someone just needs to innovate them. And I think that will happen.
James, do you think that because this is a sort of new wide open playing field, that people could do that? And just like with a lot of streaming music, some other things, people sort of say, hey, I'm going to do this live event. I'm going to, find a way to sort of grassroots charge this. So, it isn't going through a Live Nations or whatever. And you're working with a local venue and they have a way to put it all together and sort of make sure it stays with the venue and with the musicians.
Yeah. I mean, Tom talked about this a lot too. The problem is getting people to shows. I mean, there's the issue of arrivals and dismissals from concerts and the headaches that creates. One of the big problems that we're all going to see, or that we're all going to face, is that consumers may not be ready to go to shows for a year or so. They may not be at that comfort level, no matter, if you can open up all the music venues you want. I'm not convinced there will be an appetite for it because people are still legitimately scared for their health.
No,
so,
like a virtual, if they went through and just did the virtual thing themselves, because everybody has these setups at their house with these speakers and big TVs and stuff, and just charging admission that way.
I've seen, again, kind of the domain of the larger scale artists, but I saw Michael McDermott and Robin Hitchcock both do live concerts on stage it. And I kind of like that model, but they can get away with it. They can charge for tickets because they have audiences that span decades. But it was a really nice scenario, and you could tip the artist as they perform. And, I was trying to do the math in my head, watching Michael McDermott a couple Sundays ago. I'm like, he did okay. But again, for artists at a lower level or an ascending artist, that's not as guaranteed a situation. So I love what Lincoln Hall is doing, and I love the concept. But again, I don't know from a revenue generation perspective if that's it. I think it's worth leaning into, and I'd love to see more people try things like that. But it is kind of wide open right now.
Do you feel like when it does clear up, though, that I just noticed you had Polly Jean Harvey behind you. God bless her. Uh-huh. That people are going to want, I think of how badly I need a Springsteen show right now. Like how wonderful that would be for everyone just to sort of, throw that energy back out there. And I would imagine that when the gates do open up again, people are going to need it more than ever to feel that feeling again. So I hear what you're saying about people being a little afraid.
At every single show, every night, once I feel it's safe.
That's it.
About being around in a crowd of other people inside.
Yeah. Well, here's a chilling thought. I had this thought the other day, going back to the idea of trying to find an orderly way to get people in and out of venues, because you can't have that herd lined up to get in. You can't have them just exit all at the same time. Imagine, if you will, a world where suddenly large concert venues become like United Airlines, and you have preferred seating that you could pay money for, where you get seated, we're now boarding group A into the venue, and they'll be the first to exit. How do you as a promoter do that? So yes, I agree with you. A Springsteen show, great. We're all hungry for it. I'm dying to see live music. I went to the Robinson Brothers at Lincoln Hall earlier this year that Tom mentioned. Oh my God, I would see that every day of the week if I could. But it's just, there's so much to figure out right now, and no one has the answers. And I think it's coming up with new ideas. And the drive-in model seems to be the smartest right now.
Just real quick, we have a band we manage called Dirty Honey, and they're a rock band. They're a new rock band, and they kind of throw back. They have kind of a classic sound, but they've had 2 number 1s now at radio, and they're one of these bands that's up and coming, and they opened up for GNR and blah blah blah. They're doing a live broadcast, a pay-per-view live from the Viper Room next weekend in Los Angeles, and I think it's like $10 or whatever it is, just in order to have the stream. So you got this great live band streaming from a classic venue in Los Angeles, and I happen to know someone here, who lives over in the next neighborhood from mine, who is a huge fan. This guy got like a sound permit from the village, and he's going to put a big screen in his driveway, huge audio sound, and he's going to have his neighbors and stuff sit in the street. Like, this guy's going full out to broadcast this concert because he loves the band and because he misses the experience. But
that's awesome.
Things like that, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just trying to get people comfortable with it and kind of have that experience again somehow.
It's amazing how much people need it. I mean,
sure.
It's a lifestyle, right? For most people. I mean, people love live music. It's a lifestyle. It's not. It's almost like therapy. It's like
it's going to church for me. Like when I go, I'm
absolutely.
like, all right, I got to go to church. I got to get this out.
It's like going to church for me too. I go with my parents. I wear a suit. It's lovely. But even locally in the Chicago area, Jason Narducci, who is in Bob Mold's band and plays with Superchunk, he's been doing backyard parties, kind of what we're talking about. He's been playing social distancing in and around the north suburbs, social distancing shows. It's not quite metro, but it's something. And to your point, we all have this appetite, and that's one way to sate it. And people are willing to tip or pay artists who do special things like this. I think there is money to be made if you're making a connection at that very intimate level.
I think it's the venues that are really gonna have, not that the artists aren't gonna have a super hard time, but where the venues are stuck, especially those smaller venues, are, you'll go see Springsteen. You might feel safer to go see that bigger act at that bigger place. When I lived around the corner from the Empty Bottle, I would sometimes just walk over and listen at the door for a second. And if I liked what I heard, I would just pay the cover and go in and see who was playing. I didn't even know who it was half the time. And it's that casual going out and catching a show, whether it was actually I think they're closed now, but Elbow Room or Empty Bottle or Beat Kitchen or one of those smaller local neighborhood music places that we already have lost so many of them.
Yep.
There's only very few left. And, my concern is, will that casual listener feel safe enough to go in there and catch shows?
That's the big question. And it's something that a lot of smarter people than me are going to have to figure out. It's a daunting task, and I would love to see it. And, we've mentioned a lot of venues in Chicago so far. The thought of them, suffering like a life-threatening body blow just guts me. It takes my breath away. I can't. It's a lifestyle, as we've said, and I hope that we can find a way through this, because these venues mean so much. And I mean, they set all of us down this path. I mean, they really did. Seeing shows. I mean, me seeing Iggy Pop at Metro in 1988.
Oh, now you're bragging.
I was there that night.
The Instinct Tour, one of the hottest days of my life. It was in the middle of a heat wave in Chicago. It was transformative. But it shows like that, those opportunities that make people love music and want to contribute to it and talk about it.
Do you feel, though, that like at our age, sorry to admit that we're all at an age where we remember that was a thing that we still like to do. We still like to drop into it. The reason why some of these venues were going out is because younger people aren't hitting the clubs the way that we were hitting the clubs when we were kids. And maybe I'm an optimist that instead of this being the nail in the coffin, this will actually help these kids realize that, you know what, like, I kind of wish I had that. And when it's okay to go back, maybe they'll go back in droves, because they actually feel like this is you don't know what you got till it's gone type of thing.
Well, that's interesting. The thing is, though, is that right now, because of the way that music is consumed in general, I mean, a lot of it is streaming, right? I mean, my son is 15, and Kanye West is like, and he's like not, he's like deep into it, like the music and album tracks and stuff, so unless there's someone that he knows or that he's a fan of, or I'm dragging him out to a small show, I mean, odds are he's not going to be going to see the show at the Metro anytime soon, which, I mean, and that's not for every kid, that's just mine. But there's just, if you look at the, like, the way that, like I said, music is consumed, and look at the charts, a lot of that stuff is, geared towards, these larger venues are not touring at all in some cases. So it's, I think it's, music discovery is important. And I think, the venues, hopefully when they get back and we kind of are in some sort of normal, there's a lot more of that happening with the younger fans. So
I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in the world of video. I keep waiting for a music video renaissance to happen. I think now is the time. I mean, case in point, what Hood Smoke did. I just seeing people find creative things, and maybe not performance based, maybe visual based. Now's the time. This is one way for artists to get their stuff out there and in people's face, short of touring. I keep feeling like we're going to see a resurgence in video.
I mean, what we're doing now is innovation. I mean, I've
Exactly.
seen Zoom shows that have blown my mind. I mean, not the ones I've done, the ones that I've seen. I go, God, I aspire to that. That is like, this is a new creative platform for creative people to, manipulate these boxes in ways that have never been used before. And I've seen some of the most entertaining, inspiring things out of the last 6 months have come from Zoom, of all places.
Well, speaking of videos, because I don't want to run on, we're getting a little bit short. I want to get to Allison's video.
Yes.
So now I'm feeling I have the one video, queued up here, and I'm kind of wishing I went with the other one so we could see the multiple different screens. Because I've got the video about to play this, so they're all on one screen, but that's okay, I guess. So it's the "You Make My Home." So you tell me tell me about the song a little bit.
Well, this is the one that's on Situation Chicago. This is off of our album that came out 2 years ago. It's actually about our dog. I don't know. It's a song I wrote. It's like an Oh Yes anthem. I'd say we always play. This is one of the songs that we play often. I don't know what else to say about it.
Nope, that's all right. All right, let me see if I can do this correctly again. So here we go.
No behind the music for you, Allison.
Yeah, I'm not. I was texting Trey earlier about how I shouldn't be the one, but here I am. So
I talked her into it.
I want to know the VH1 Where Is the Dog Now
Give her a
episode.
bottle of scotch, so that helps.
Where is Archie?
We're going to talk about Scotch in a second. Let me get this rolling and make sure it works. Go. All right.
I could love you.
Did it again.
It's gorgeous.
I know. I hit the wrong button.
That's all right. I'm just filling in for you while you tech out.
It's short, but it tells everything, tells the story.
That was a great song, Allison.
I know.
No wonder you had so little to say about it.
I'm not sure if I should be the one giving James advice on how to do this.
It's a really small dog.
And you can hear the whole thing on Situation Chicago, the compilation album. You can pre-order on Bandcamp right now. Go to quietpterodactyl.com for more.
What a professional. What a professional.
Here we go.
I could love you if you let me love you. I will if you only felt my heart beat every time you came into the room. Now I know I don't know what you've been through, but trust me when I say I won't hurt you. You make my home a home. could give you shelter when the rains come rolling in. If you only felt my heart beat every time you were near me. Now I know I don't know what you have seen, but trust me when I say I won't be mean. You make my home a home. I could love you if you let me love you.
Yeah.
No auto tune on that one. That was gorgeous.
How could you not want that on vinyl? Situationchicago.com.
There it is.
Sold. Done.
All right. So let's talk about the good stuff. But gotta
The
be a little bit of
good
naked.
stuff.
This good stuff. So Edrington, our company, is probably most well. Whoa. Hang on. So Edrington, our company, is most well known for our single malt Scotch, the M word. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it again, so I'm just not going to. I'll let Jeremy say it if he wants to. But we make 3 different single malts, including the Glenrothes and Highland Park, and we make a blended Scotch whiskey called Famous Grouse. And this is our Naked Grouse. So it's a blend of 3 different single malts. I'm not supposed to tell you what's in them, but we only make 3, so it's kind of not hard to figure out. And they call it naked because a naked barrel is a sherry barrel that's never had whiskey in it before. So they call it a naked barrel. And part of this, the ethos behind the brand is living naked. So having new experiences, sharing experiences, those experiences like first time type experiences.
Having no auto tune.
No auto tune. So I kind of wanted to I thought of this, especially with live music and all those memories we all have at different shows. James mentioned that Iggy Pop show in '88. For me, my first, so the first concert, big concert I ever went to was a huge one. My mom took me to it, and it was Michael Jackson's Victory Tour at Comiskey Park, and that was a huge one. But my first major music memory of my own was a Naked Raygun show at the Metro. I want to say it was 1986, but it might have been 87. I guess it was 87. It was my sophomore year in high school, and it was the night before my Spanish final, which I then flunked the next day. The only final exam I ever failed was because I went to the Naked Raygun show the night before. But it was worth it because those tracks ended up being at the end of Jettison. They added them at the end of the Jettison CD. So those shows I can go back to and listen to what they played those nights, like even now, and it's awesome. It's cool. So for me, that's kind of like that first memory of mine. So who else has got a naked memory? I know Jeremy's got one, but who else has got a naked memory to share?
I'll follow.
All right.
With a concert, right? You're talking?
Yeah, live music.
Because I'll follow because I also have one that my mom took me to, which is like the first. It was also huge, and it was Paul McCartney at County Stadium in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yeah. Where the Brewers used to play, and I was in 3rd grade, so it was the Off the Ground tour, I don't know if any of you know the Off the Ground album. I like the album. I think it holds up. I'm a fan of that album. And it was like, you know, one of those life-changing, like, what's this?
Yeah.
Kind of moments. You know, it's pretty amazing seeing the fireworks go off for Live and Let Die and all that.
Oh, that's
So yeah, when you said you went to the Michael Jackson concert, that reminded me of that. But one that I went to on my own later was in Chicago at the Chicago Jazz Fest when I first moved here back in '02. It was the Wayne Shorter Quartet, the one with Patitucci and Brian Blade and Danilo Perez. And that was also just one of those moments of just like, what is this? This is something, you know, it's moving and just incredible. And Brian Blade wearing all black as the sun's going down, just, you know, all skinny and flailing and just playing the most amazing music you ever heard, at least at the time for me. So that's mine.
very cool. James, do you want to dig more into Iggy Pop, or do you have another one that you'd like to bring up?
We'll leave Iggy Pop. We'll let Iggy Pop stand. That was phenomenal. 5'1", 1970. I would say anytime I saw the Jesus Lizard in the 1990s was just a roof-shaking, body-chilling experience. This was hands down the best live band I've ever seen on stage. They were a force of nature, one of the best rhythm sections I've ever seen in rock and roll. The lead singer, David Yao, is like a feral animal unleashed, just disgusting, foul, just everything about him was wrong and magnificently right on stage. And I think the best time I saw them was around the mid-90s at a place called the Vic in Chicago. And it was just, it's a physical show. It's a visceral show. And to date, I've seen lots of great bands. I've seen lots of powerful music. I've never seen a band like the Jesus Lizard on stage. So I'll say the Jesus Lizard at the Vic in the mid-90s.
Tom?
I mean, there's so many. I mean,
You've seen like a million billion shows.
Yeah. You know, I was able to see Prince numerous times at Paisley Park. I saw him he did an after show at the Metro one night too in the like 2000 or it was in 2000 somewhere, which was like unforgettable. My very first concert though was at the Chicago Stadium, 1978. It was Kiss Alive 2 tour. And I'm going to tell you, I walked in there, you know, confused, and I left there like I didn't know what the hell was going on. I mean, it was like unlike every sense that I had was just like, you know, on overload. And I left there and didn't sleep for 2 days, and just like I was in.
I hate when people hate on Kiss. I hate when people hate on Kiss. I'm like, if you don't like Kiss, that's fine, but if you don't respect them, you don't get it. You know.
And in 1978, they were firing on all cylinders, and it was just like, I mean, it was just, you know, the heat from the pyro. I mean, I'm 10 years old. My first concert, I was just like, what's going on?
That was right about the time I think that you introduced me to Kiss, was being at your house and you just playing it nonstop. Who did you go to that show with at 10 years old?
It was my best friend at the time, and it was him and his mother and his aunt, and they actually took us. So it was like, you know, big night out, and you know, I had no clue.
I do have to tell you, Tom, first concert I ever saw was Prince Purple Rain tour. And it was the actual only real encore I've ever seen at a show like that. The lights went up, the show was over, half the place left, half the place did not leave, and he came back out and played 3 more songs. It was crazy.
The Rosemont Horizon?
It was at in Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I went to the show here.
That tour actually is available now on YouTube. They just re-released it for a minute, and there was the Syracuse show, which was a couple days after the show I saw, and my wife and I nerded out on that a few days ago.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like him in my life. I mean, he's just, you know, it was amazing.
Ray?
My first big show I remember seeing, which I think has you all beat, is contemporary Christian singer Sandy Patty at Kemper Arena in Kansas City, which I imagine is a lot like a Kiss show or a Prince show. But no, my favorite show, having nothing to do with the pandemic, but kind of related, was about a week after 9/11, when all planes were grounded, no one was traveling anywhere, everyone was kind of scared to leave their house. And David Byrne did not cancel his Chicago concert, and he drove from New York in with his main band and their string quartet they're touring with, drove up from Austin, and that was the last show that they did not cancel on that tour.
Wow.
It was at the Riviera, and like they left the lights at half mast. Like it was like, can we have fun? Can we be in public? Can we even be at a show right now? And they just put on an amazing show. David Byrne's lyrics, which are, you know, completely filled with social commentary and words about war, just took on a whole new meaning. And then he closed it with like a 10-minute jam out version of Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, that just made everyone feel like, all right, everything might just be okay. And it was just beautiful. So yeah, I'm kind of looking for a post-pandemic concert like that that's going to make me feel like everything's just going to be all right.
TJ, you got one for us?
Yeah, I've seen a few shows in my day. I posted this link in the chat here. So when I lived in New York, I tried to go to all the Prospect Park shows and all the shows on the pier because, you know, it's one of the great bounties of living in big, beautiful cities where, you know, they'll subsidize shows with great artists. And I went to the show with Sufjan Stevens in 2011 in Prospect Park, and it poured rain. And those were rain or shine shows outside. And I was am a huge All Songs Considered fan, Bob Boilen fan. And then it turned out he was at that same show and wrote about it as potentially the new gold standard, comparing it to seeing Pink Floyd 40 years earlier in the 70s. So, and that's another thing that's like music is a religious experience, just huge maximum indie bullshit, but making it feel like everybody's connected in this kind of weird atmosphere where everybody's just pouring rain and it doesn't even matter anymore.
Anything from you, Evan? I'm sure you've seen a few shows down in Nashville.
Yeah, one of my favorite venues is the Ryman, which a lot of people know. You know, it was an old church and it's crazy and acoustic, and but luckily I've been able to see some shows there. I got to see Garbage for Shirley Manson, and it's a very intimate space and it's very close, and she just blew the back out of the building. So much so there was a guy like in the front row who's like, and it was an old church, like reaching up trying to touch her, and she's like, get back, and he reaches up and she just takes her boot and puts it into his face. But it was amazing. I mean, the sound's crazy, but her voice was just insane. And yeah. And then another time I saw Ben Harper there, and it was just so quiet and so intimate, but the crowd was literally just like a wave of people like moving in unison. Everybody loved it.
Well, to the wonderful memories, to some great whiskey.
Yeah.
To all of you for joining me tonight. Slanchava.
Thank you, Sri.
Thank you for being out here.
Sri?
Yes.
Can I mention something real quick, real fast?
Absolutely.
There is an organization that I'm sure a lot of you probably know about called the National Independent Venue Association, NIVA. And it's, you'll see hashtags Save Our Stages all over the place now on Instagram. And, you know, there's, if you can find it online, find it on, you know, on Instagram, Facebook, and they have direct links to where you can click a link and write, you know, all the powers that be about trying to get funding for these small venues. And it's, you know, they're going into another session at some point here soon. And, you know, that's just as important as buying merch and everything else that you can do to save all these small venues. And it's the small venues all over the country. It's like 2,000 venues, and it's like every single state in the U.S. So it's again, it's NIVA, the National Independent Venue Association, and you can just click on and just write, you know, your congressman, and they make it very easy for you to facilitate, you know, contact. So.
Excellent. We will put a link up on the Digital Speakeasy website too.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
go to saveourstages.com and do that now. There's a huge push because Congress is going to vote on this in like a week. So the sooner everyone logs into that and writes their congressman.
SaveOurStages.com. Okay.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll put it up on the when we're done, I'll put it up on the Digital Speakeasy Facebook.
Perfect.
So, excellent. Well, if you can, you know, we've got some great charities here. You can take some action with SaveOurStages.com and talk about and go to NIVA and help get some funding from Congress. You can buy the record from Situation Chicago and help these bands locally and these venues locally here in the city. Please support the live music any way you can. Support your local artists. Find them. They're out there. They're doing stuff. They want to reach you. You know, and World Central Kitchen, if you've got the chance, we're going to be doing this for a while. So, you know, we were trying to raise as much as we can for all of our local restaurants who are also, you know, we see California shut down again, Texas, you know, we don't know what's going to happen there. It's a big concern. So,
and wear your masks, everybody.
Wear your mask.
Yeah. Yes.
Please.
Oh, wait. All right, hang on. I got to pause the music. We got to get Allison's concert.
Oh,
We're going to pause it for Allison.
oh, hi. What? Sorry. I was
Oh, hi.
I'm double duty Zooming right now.
That's
so.
all right. Your favorite, this will be quick. Your favorite or most like earliest concert memory?
Oh, well, I am a child of Filipino immigrants. So I think my first concert memory was I think we saw the Monkees, which is hilarious. So that happened. I was trying to think of this earlier and I couldn't really, I don't know. I always think about, no, we didn't see the New Kids on the Block. I wish I did. No,
Sorry.
I know. No, but I was telling Brian, when we saw Paul McCartney a couple years ago, I don't know, I had never seen Paul McCartney live, and it was it's just something that stuck out with me.
My mom loves Paul McCartney.
we heard.
Yeah, that was my first one.
Was it?
Yeah. From '93. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on the Speakeasy tonight. We're super happy to have you, and we hope to see you all soon. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to YouTube, Park and Carne, listen to the podcast. It's amazing. Good Smoke, the Oh Yeahs, check them out. Situation Chicago, Red Light Management. Everybody, thank you. Have a good night.
Later.